Hi, I'm Michelle, and this is The Other Side of Misery, a space where I think out loud about life, making meaning, staying curious, refusing to flatten experiences into binaries. Let's begin. I want to tell you about how a shade of blue changed my life, because that's really what this story is about. Not a breakthrough, not a revelation, a color. A moment I called a supernova in the last episode, where my life reoriented. Since you know my life timeline basically at this point, I can tell you it was during the Stanford years when I was grinding in a neuroscience lab, deeply passionate and engaged in the research questions I was asking. I cared so much about my work. It was and is incredibly important work. At that time, it was my center in every way, but also maybe a bit of a flotation device holding all of me together. I was sustained by just this one thing. Ooh, even as I get ready to tell the story, I want to keep telling you all the other fun parts of this trip too. Like how I jumped on a sea urchin, but that doesn't have anything to do with my reorientation of self. It's just a ridiculous story that I'll get to tell today too. So I took a vacation with a friend of mine. We went to Croatia, Greece, then Spain together for maybe 2-3 weeks, probably 3 weeks, starting in Croatia on one of those small cruise ships. Maybe 30 people in their 20s from Australia and England seeking a good party and some sunshine on a small Croatian boat with no air conditioning in the peak of summer. It was hot and loud and fun. People who quickly became friends. Not a luxury vessel by any means, but we were all on a budget. Young travelers are often willing to put up with so much for a good deal, and we all were no different. The boat was tiny. Cabins the size of a normal closet, not even a walk-in closet. The floor space available in each room was maybe about the size of a welcome mat, and each room had bunk beds built into the walls, a little sink, and a door that no one used because it was just so hot and humid that we all just slept with our doors open every night, trying to catch a breeze. And we had a routine. Every single day, the same thing. The sun came up and we woke up. Because with open doors and Croatian summer heat, sleeping in was more of a vacation ideal than an actual option. It was hot and bright basically immediately. And the first thing everyone did was jump in the water, just off the side of the boat and into the sea. We never really discussed or coordinated this routine of rolling out of our bunk beds and right out the open door into the water. But we all just found our way into the sea. Like baby sea turtles hearing some instinctual call to return to a place we belonged. Playing around and splashing and laughing and lounging on the floats that lived in perpetual flotation behind the boat. If you somehow managed to sleep through the heat and the sun, you were woken up by the sound of the splashing and laughter. Strangers who just yesterday became friends, just living in the water outside your door. Then, after a thorough soak, we would climb back up, air dry in the sun, lay out on the deck, start our day with breakfast in our one and only communal meeting space that served as hangout room, bar, and dining hall. That was it. That was the whole morning. And it was perfect. We would spend the rest of the day exploring the towns we docked at, nature preserves, islands, cities, come back to the boat to shower and get ready for an evening out, which ranged from a party on the dock with locals, learning dances, to young people's parties in caves by the beach until 4 a.m. Okay, brief sea urchin side story here. It was maybe day 4 or 5 of 7 or 10 on this boat. We'd spent the whole day at this island that was just one large nature preserve, and it was so beautiful. We spent the evening at this quiet dock, barely any overhead lighting. with only locals on this small island town as their bands played music and these families danced and laughed together. There were other boats traveling the same circuit as us, other young people enjoying the party. I was sitting on the edge of the dock with my new friends. Meanwhile, my friend who I had been traveling with was actually simultaneously trapped in the bathroom back on the boat, banging on the door, hoping someone would let her out soon. I learned about this afterwards, once we had reunited. Again, not a luxury vessel, but a lot of fun. Dangling our feet over this inky black, endless sea before us, I saw a soda can floating on the waves nearby, and it broke my heart. We were all gifted access to this beautiful island, this place where people valued nature and took care of it. It hurt to see that we, as a group of tourists, came in and didn't live up to our end of the deal, that we sullied this beautiful thing that was opened up for us to enjoy. And I didn't really think. I just kind of acted and jumped into the water, fully clothed. I guess thinking could have potentially been a good idea, because I would have realized that being on this dock, the water near us wasn't as deep as it seemed, and I had jumped directly on a sea urchin, impaling my toe on the spines. Yeah. It hurt. But it didn't deter me. I was already in the water. I swam out, got the soda can, swam back, tossed it up to a new friend of mine to throw it out properly, and was hoisted out of the water as my toe started to drip lots of blood. Funnily enough, 3 of the guys on my boat were actually medical students back in Australia, future surgeons. A bit intoxicated, but again, future surgeons nonetheless. We all kind of shuffled back to the boat and found some old tweezers and a headlamp as they took turns cutting my toe open to try to get as many spines out as they could. And they did their mighty best, but there were a few remaining big guys in there. And I tried all the Croatian folk remedies, which I collected like stamps from every local that I encountered who saw me hobbling around asking, "What's wrong?" None of them worked, unfortunately. So I spent the rest of this 3-week-long vacation limping. Back in California, I had to get the sea urchin spine surgically removed from my foot. I guess this story kind of just goes to show how in the moment I was living on this trip, how connected and responsible I felt to the sea. Okay, so back to the main story. It's morning 1 or maybe 2 on the boat, and my mom FaceTimes me. I'm standing outside that mess hall / communal dining space, gathering room, whatever we want to call it. I was walking to breakfast after laying in the sun long enough to get to about 80% dry. And I was kind of angled with my back to the sea, but if I turned my head just slightly to the left, I could see it. It was right there. That morning, we were somewhere in the sea. I don't know where. But reception was not excellent, as you might expect. My mom's face showed up on the screen and was basically this beige pixel soup. But I could hear her clearly. I didn't get a hello or "How are you doing?" or "How is the trip going so far?" from her. She just looked at whatever pixelated version of me that was getting through to her and said, "I can't remember the last time I've seen you this happy." Even thinking about it now, I get chills. It really hit me so suddenly. I turned my head to the left just slightly, and there was the sea. This particular shade of blue, deep and bright in the sunlight and glittering and moving. It was such a remarkable blue. And I thought, oh, I am happy. This is happy. When was the last time I felt this? I turned back to my pixelated mother and said, I am very happy here. I love it here. It sounds simple. It was simple. That is maybe one of the points of this story. The moments that rock us to our cores, that reorient us, that explode like supernovas and change the structure of our space-time. They don't have to be painful or big or dramatic. They can sometimes just require some attention, slowing down enough to see the thing in front of us, feeling a simple feeling like happiness, seeing a shade of blue. Now, the whole story didn't lock in immediately. That's not how it works for me sometimes, even when the epiphany moment is sudden. The lightning strike happens in an instant, but the storm might take a few days to roll in. The best metaphor I have for it so far is this: a lake freezing over in winter. The phone call with my mom, that was the temperature finally dropping below zero. But it took a few more days of cold before the ice was thick enough to actually walk out onto it, to trust it with my full weight. By the end of the trip, the ice had frozen. I was standing on it, and I knew that the life I had been living needed to change. I wasn't scared of that by the end, though. I was maybe more scared of being trapped in a life that didn't have the feeling of the Adriatic Sea's blue in it. This confident, fearless knowing solidified in a practically impractical way through a business plan that would never actually take shape. Another flotation device I held onto as I shifted gears. So here's the thing about curly hair and the Adriatic Sea. I don't know what's in that water, but it does something to curls that I have genuinely never been able to replicate with any product or any hairstylist anywhere in the world. I showed my hairstylist photos and videos of my hair at that time. The shock and surprise extends beyond me. I don't know what it is, the salts, the minerals, the water, whatever it is, it's incredible. The few other curly-haired people on the boat were having the same experience as me. We didn't wash our hair in the shower for a week because we popped out of the ocean every morning with perfectly defined, shiny, luminous curls. I'd be sitting on the deck looking at the bouncing curls around me, thinking, what if I were to just move to Croatia? Start a curly hair product company, bottle the seawater somehow and sell it to curly-haired people everywhere? What if I spent my day-to-day life on this water? What did I really need out of life anyway? A small rundown boat and weekends off to enjoy the sea? It seemed doable. The part about how little I actually would need in order to feel this contented joy I was feeling. Less so the business model. But to my sun-soaked brain, I thought it seemed somewhat plausible, knowing I likely would never actually do it. But the exercise mattered, because what this business plan was really telling me was I could build a life anywhere. I could pick up, move to a boat in the Adriatic, start from scratch, make something from nothing, change the script of my life, and not just survive it, thrive in it. Be a version of myself that was new, different than the previous versions of me. Be the version of myself that my mom saw on her pixelated screen. The real solidifying moment came at the end of the trip. Flying home to San Francisco from Barcelona, I looked out of the plane window at the coastline getting smaller beneath me, and I noticed myself. I noticed my thoughts. I was having the thoughts I always have when I leave a place I've loved, when I'd leave a vacation. This voice, this call that said, stay. Give yourself over to it. Abandon your real life and just be here, stay here. But this time, I knew I would answer that call. It wasn't a voice I was silencing. I didn't respond back the way I usually did. Oh, but I can't. That isn't the real world. That isn't viable, smart, wise, a well-respected choice to make. I can't. I have to get back to real life. Instead, I just smiled, I think, with my face pressed up against the glass. I smiled a kind of smile which said, I'll be back soon for you. This isn't goodbye. I'm doing it. I'm coming for you. Reflecting on this now, I realize I wasn't speaking to the Spanish coastline, though I have been back since. I was speaking to the echo of myself on the water down there. The version of myself that was floating on the sea, happy and alive. I would come back for her. I would find her. I wasn't leaving her behind this time. I didn't have fear, no sense of recklessness or stupidity, just clarity. I was going to go back to my responsible, well-respected, incredible job and leave. I wasn't going to leave the job to go to a PhD program like everyone else did. I wasn't going to do the responsible thing, the right thing. I was going to leap. The only question was where I'd land. And that question didn't inspire fear as much as excitement. I was on the edge of becoming a new version of myself, one that had always wanted a space to exist in the world. I was having dinner with a friend a few weeks ago. He's from Argentina, but lived in Australia and Canada, and now the US too. He is the classic nomadic free spirit archetype that must come to your mind when I say that. And he was telling me how most people he meets around the world seem to get stuck in their lives. That we forget that we can change our lives, change everything with the push of a button. All it takes is one push of a button and everything in your life could be different. In his example, he was referring to the button of buying a plane ticket. Specifically for him to leave Canada after only 2 months of living there because it was colder than he expected and he didn't want to live in a cold place. He ended up somewhere warm. And we sat together on a rooftop bar as he looked out at the sparkling city before him. And he had this look on his face that I imagine was similar to mine looking at the Adriatic blue. His eyes sparkled, and he smiled this peaceful, contented, electric smile as he turned to me and said, I never would have thought I would end up here. You hear about places like this, but I never thought I would get to live in a place like this. Wow. And when I lived in California, I met a man once who was giving a talk, an older man. He was now a businessman who had done his PhD in some systems type of biology, ecosystems in Yosemite's lakes. He told me that he had lived his entire life only doing things so long as they were fun, so long as he enjoyed them. He said he spent most of his life with no more than a few dollars in his bank account at any given moment, but that it never stressed him out. He always knew that if he needed money, he'd find a way. He told me stories of research expeditions north to Arctic climates and south to tropical islands that he had done all before even starting his PhD. He told me about passion projects in massage and writing that sprung up in his life like the field of wildflowers coming back to life after winter. He was recently a millionaire or something like that because he had started a company with a friend of his because it seemed fun to do. This venture was his first financially successful one. They sold the company, and now he has more than a few dollars in his bank account for the first time in his life. But the metric of how he weighs his life is so different from what many of us do. Yes, he became financially successful much later in life, but he had a different type of success earlier. It was my first time meeting someone like that back in my early 20s. He lived a life that he loved always. Money or no money, there wasn't stress or fear. just pursuit of joy. I'll clarify that I'm not endorsing this man's philosophy or my Argentinian friend's philosophy as the only right way to live or even a right way to live. It's an alternative way of thinking about things is all, and it's something that has resonated with me. I've reflected a lot about the shift that took place that allowed me to leave this stable and impressive position, just stepping away from academia, this only world that I had ever known, to take such a sharp turn from being proud and confident in myself as a researcher to telling anyone who would listen how I was proudly unemployed as I sat on a beach and painted. Yes, I saw how academia had been my skeleton, my spine. Not just a passion, but the literal structural support holding all of me upright. It was where I got my entire sense of self-worth, my voice, my reason for taking up space. All of it was load-bearing on that one thing. That blue water in Croatia gave me something else to orient around. That shade of blue made me feel something. It entered me not through a cognitive pathway or a thought or reflection or insight. I felt it. I felt like an electric charge moving through me that didn't result in motion or movement. It was an electricity that made me feel calm, peaceful. I felt alive. That blue showed me that joy, aliveness could be a skeleton too, that maybe it was the skeleton I actually wanted to build my body and self around. I didn't need to optimize or produce or prove anything to earn the right to live a life that felt that way, the way I felt standing in front of the blue. I think about Croatia sometimes. It's like a memento I look back on to remind myself of the lessons I needed at that time. And sometimes I need to be reminded of it now too. I think about how easy it would have been to spend that summer doing what I always did, working, producing, being useful, staying on script. How the whole thing hinged on one pixelated phone call and one particular shade of blue, and one very sharp insight from my mother. I think about how easy it can be now to follow the same script. Croatia is my reminder that life is something we write and decide, that we are always one button away from changing our lives. I don't think meaning announces itself loudly very often. I think it mostly shows up sideways. In the middle of an ordinary morning, when you turn your head slightly to the left and the sea is just there, being blue, waiting for you to notice. We never really know where the roads we take will lead us, who or where I would be if I had never taken this leap. But I'm here now, doing a PhD, asking and attempting to answer questions about what it means to live a good life. Not how do we survive, not how do we find happiness, but how do we flourish? That question brought me here, to this podcast, to you. And really, it started on a boat in the Adriatic years ago, with my head turned slightly to the left, staring at a shade of blue that still gives me chills to talk about. Thanks for being here with me today. If you want more of this, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok at The Other Side of Misery. If you want to read along, I publish essays and transcripts on Substack, which you can find on the website, theothersideofmisery.com. And if you want to chat, write to me through the website or at theothersideofmisery@gmail.com. A rating or review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify helps us reach the people who are looking for it, so thank you for doing that if you feel moved to. New episodes drop every Wednesday. For those who lean in, I'll see you next week. Oh my God, I did it. It's 2 in the morning. It's past 2 in the morning. I have to get ready. I have a lot of work to do tomorrow. But now I have to do the editing. Ladies and gentlemen, and people and animals, honestly, pets, if you're listening to this too. I mean, what humans are animals. All beings who are listening. The editing really sucks. Oh, I know it's a learning process. Maybe many of you have this sensation where it's a bit unpleasant to listen to your own voice. I've transcended beyond that. It took many years of just dealing with hearing the sound of my own voice back in the research lab days. We recorded all of our sessions and things that we would do, and I had to listen back to my sessions so many times, every single session, multiple times. I just ended up getting used to it. I don't know if that makes this process any easier, this editing process, because I do have to listen to each episode so many times. So I get to hear all of my little blips and mistakes, deeply familiar with the sound of my own voice, the sound of my breathing, the sound of my cat or the air conditioner. I'm learning a new skill. It's very useful editing. I hope you enjoy the fruits of my labor. And even if you don't, I know I'm complaining, but I'm enjoying it too. Hi. Maybe I gotta change the intro because every single time it's hard. Every time I have to do the, hi, I'm Michelle. I'm like, if I'm struggling with it so much, maybe I should change it. How else do I start this whole thing? This is the other side of misery. I don't know if I like that either. It's just a welcome to the other side of misery. Okay. If you have ideas, write to me. How could I maybe start this or get over the whole, hi, I'm Michelle thing? That's such a hassle for me in my life. I fight with this. For now, we'll stick with it. If you've listened to any of the past episodes, you'll know that this is not take one and that it's late at night. It's actually 1:31 in the morning and I have work tomorrow. But here I am, finding time, making time for something that's important to me. Okay. One of these days, I'll have time when the sun is out to do this. I have a bug bite on my stomach. How did that happen? Okay. One more yawn. I hope I don't put you to sleep with my yawns.